and persevere concerning the judgment of your sustainer, or concerning the ruling of your sustainer, and do not obey of them those who have gained discrepancies, or those who are in denial of our power in worldly affairs. فاصبر لحكم ربك ولا تطع منهم آثما أو كفورا. This ayah is quite relevant to many conditions or developments along our historical course to Allah subhanahu. And in continuing where we left off, and in recalling the meanings of this ayah, we focus further on the relationship between the leader of the Muslims on one side and the Islamic citizenry on the other side. We realize, and we should think more about this early relationship between the Muslim leader and the Muslims who are being led. We now know from opening up these historical pages that we, all of us, from whichever background we come from, we realize that we endured at the beginning of our history 3 civil wars, and as a result of that there was a condition of war fatigue that set into Muslim society in Iraq and in Arabia. And Imam Ali at this time was the leader of the Muslims, in particular these Muslims in southern Iraq. And within his jurisdiction, within the people that he was ruling now, there were those who were violently opposed to him. And we said these were called Al-Khawarij in the books of history that we have. They lived side by side in Al-Kufa with the population that they disagreed with. And the relationships were, on the surface of it, normal relationships. Even though these dissidents knew that they were enjoying the benefits of a civil society that has no equal, They knew that they're not going to be thrown into prison for being against the government. Something that we don't even have today. After 1400 years, the standard of freedom that was available to the Muslims at that time is not available to the Muslims today, in their own lands and in their own countries. They knew that the leader they had was not going to cut off their access to the Islamic budget, to Islamic revenue, to the spoils of war that were in the Islamic treasury. They knew all of that was guaranteed to them, and even though that was the case, they insisted on being violently opposed to the administration that is guaranteeing them these benefits and this standard of living. And Imam Ali was aware of their presence. He knew that encountering them at An-Nahrawan had made them more stubborn than they were before. And remember, that Imam Ali initially was on his way to Damascus, to Asham, to solve the festering internal problem that was in the Muslim rank and file now for a generation. And it was complying with his own citizenry that he went to An-Nahrawan and was forced into this military duel with these dissidents that resulted in the loss of 3,000 lives. And that generated more instability inside that jurisdiction. Imam Ali would give a lecture or a khutbah, and they were there. He would speak to the public, and these opponents were there. They would listen to him, even though inside of them they were opposed to him. And he knew this. And in some of the statements, he said, لَتُخَضَّبَنَّ هَذِهِ مِنْ هَذِهِ. And he put his hand on his beard and then on his forehead, which meant that his beard was going to be stained from the blood from his head. It wasn't like we had a ruler here who was disconnected from his own people. This wasn't a person who was living in an ivory tower with security all around. This was a man from the people, of the people, and he knew the people he was with. And as if he was awaiting something to happen. In one sentence he said, مَا يُؤَخِّرُ أَشْقَاهَا. What is delaying the most rabid in this society? Meaning the person who was going to kill him. But here is where we have unprecedented heights of a public servant. This is a word that is thrown around very easily, and in our days it probably means nothing. But when we look at the ruler of the Muslims at that time, and we say he was a public servant, that is exactly who he was. And he served the public that he was ruling contrary to his better judgment.